Hey folks, it's Sunday, November 2nd. Sure is a beautiful day out here. A lot's gone on in the last week, and more than just the post office to talk about. So the second day of the OGGO report happened, and we were allowed to testify, as well as some other members. There was a guy who was responsible for talking about like an organization that represents a number of people for their publications that they make that are transmitted through Canada Post. And he basically said that their business is 100% relies on Canada Post, and a number of changes that they made that didn't suit them, but also that they felt that we were an essential service and we should be as such. But that's his opinion. So what happened was a few years ago, Canada Post made a unilateral decision that any magazine or community newsletter specifically that had more than a certain percentage of advertisement, or potentially any advertisement at all, was no longer considered to be a community newsletter, and they would have to be charged, and it was also subject to consumer's choice. And consumer's choice, for those of you who don't know, is the choice of the consumer to mark their mailbox as saying they don't want any flyers. I understand the business side of it. Why would I compete with them if I'm just taking their flyers anyway, which is a very large source of revenue for Canada Post, and then allow community newsletters to advertise? Well, that's neither here nor there, but that's entirely between those two people and the government. But we saw a couple of things where they were all saying like they really need Canada Post one way or the other, and that small businesses are really going to suffer if they get rid of us. Some interesting things from our testimony. Jim Galland answered in a 10-second bit about how the government is surprised by our answers to the questions and to the facts because they haven't bothered talking to the union, just only talking to the corporation, who has their own agenda. The one that surprised me the most was the one minister from Quebec. I can't remember her name. I didn't bring my names with me today. She was quite surprised to find out that we own Purolator, and that all of our services are going to Purolator, and that our CEO and our director sit on the board of Purolator. This seemed quite surprising to her. She seemed quite taken aback. I would think that they should know this, seeing as they're the Office of Governmental Affairs, and they deal with crown corporations all the time. I think they should know this, but I guess, this, it's been like 6 years since the last time they talked about Canada Post, and it's like 3 years overdue or something like that. So we'll have to see what comes out of that. And more recently, I think I did a short video on this one. It's been about a week since I published. It's just been so busy. That the Smith government used the notwithstanding clause from the Charter, Article 33, to suspend the rights of teachers, so that they don't have to put classroom size and composition in the discussion of negotiations. And really, that's the reason. If they just use binding arbitration, the Supreme Court ruled in 2015 that composition of the classroom and size of the classroom are negotiable items, but Alberta doesn't want to deal with that. I also saw a release from the Alberta government that says they've already changed it from 3,000 new teachers to 3,000 new teachers or assistants. So they're already dropping their numbers, even though they've already defeated the teachers. One of the interesting things of note is that most of a lot of our members who are more vocal have been rather upset that we haven't been on strike since we had the notwithstanding clause used. So I was in communication with our national office leading up to that moment, and I had secured authorization for myself to take the members out for the following conditions. If the teachers were legislated back to work, if they chose to defy, and once we knew what their plan was, we were going to do a support action. I would have pulled the members out to do that support action. And part of it is that after almost actually 2 years of our struggle and a full year of negotiations, I'm not sure if us going out for one day for any particular reason would even be noticed in the media, especially when they're still talking about the notwithstanding clause of the teachers. The teachers chose not to defy. They chose to look for other options. That's the decision they get to make. I mean, I can't criticize them. We didn't defy either. Notwithstanding clause wasn't used, but that just makes it harder. So we need to be considerate that the choice that their board made, presumably under the guidance of their membership, was that they were choosing not to defy. So I had also spoken to Calgary office, and they had also secured permission to leave. But here's part of the deal that people are probably most angry about. I can't tell you that. The only reason I can tell you about it now is because it is past. It's no longer intelligence. We have our own tactical concerns, because regardless of whether we're supporting the teachers or not, we're still going to need to defend our post offices. So there was a plan in place, but it was relying on the teachers to defy. So the National was very supportive of that. I'll give credit where credit was due. They're very supportive of this action. They gave me a great deal of trust by giving me permission to pull the members out without having to go to the board before they do it. And I'm very thankful for that, and I appreciate that. So since that time, the Alberta Federation of Labour has had a meeting, and at the moment, we're building towards a general strike if necessary. Well, why are we doing that? Well, most unions are democratic organizations, and we need the time to survey our members, to understand what they're willing to risk, because regardless of whether we're legislated back to work or not, for most of the unions, the position is that they have illegal contracts. And part of the terms of those contracts is that you can't strike during the lifetime of that contract. So they got to figure this shit out. We're in the easy position where we can just go on strike whenever we want because we are in strike. We can just do whatever we want. And that makes it very easy for us to decide. But there's relevance. 51,000 teachers were silenced this week. They were told that they cannot defy. Technically, they cannot associate with their union. They cannot speak out against it. They could, in theory, be dragged and thrown in a ditch somewhere. And there's no legal ramifications for that. So it's a tough place. I'm going to try and put together a survey to see what our members actually think about the scenario and to see where we're at. Because the most vocal voices are not always the ones that lead or the ones that should lead. Because I have people who are telling me that we absolutely 100% had to strike. And I have members telling me that we should never, ever, ever strike for anything other than our own needs. And even then, we shouldn't be striking at all. So I'm going to put together a survey and send that out to you guys. All right? Have a great day.